Hello. So, this afternoon I wanted to talk a little bit about 3D printing because I've had a few messages of where I think this will go in the future in terms of Games Workshop. Won't be too long a video. I know you all like the longer form content. But generally, if I've only got a few things to say about a topic, there's no point in waffling on for about half an hour about something I can talk about in 5 to 10 minutes. So, in terms of 3D printing, um, I honestly think, and this is my honest opinion, that a lot of people, how do I put this, um, overstate where we are with 3D printing. I think when you look at GW's molding process and their injection process, and then their releasing agent process and things like that, they are way ahead of the game of nearly everybody else on planet Earth. Well, everybody else on planet Earth right now. There is no company that gives as high detailed sculpts as GW tends to do. Um, so, and if you do know, if your opinion is that other companies do, that's fine. But that's like saying, I don't know how would everything's objectifiable, isn't it? Right? Every single opinion's like your own. For me, as somebody who's way into the hobby and has been for years, decades now, Games Workshop just make the best models in the world. And I don't think that's up for debate really. I think you can pick one model out of another range. Say this one's better, maybe, but as a constant range of products, I don't think anybody else really is on the scale of Games Workshop. It's certainly not making as many good models on as many on such a scale and speed. Um, which is why I generally think that the only way 3D printing will make a dent in Games Workshop at all is if Games Workshop are forced to adopt it as their own policy. Now, all these people who say that 3D printing is going to kill Games Workshop, I don't know where you are with reality, but that's not going to happen because Games Workshop is now a multi-billion-pound business that is growing exponentially year on year. And those people are the same people who seem to think that Games Workshop stores are the only thing that makes Games Workshop money. Or at least that's the thinking that goes into an opinion that says, well, once 3D printing comes around, they're fucked. No, they're not. They're just not. The thing that earns Games Workshop the least money is their high street retail business. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's more likely that Games Workshop will go to an online only model and generally use their Games Workshop stores as non-profit recruitment areas. I think it's more likely they're going to go in that direction than anything whatsoever is going to change if they have to adopt the 3D printing model. What I mean by that is, what I can see happening in the future with 3D printing is if it becomes such a thing, then Games Workshop will go after 3D printing companies. They will go after people who are selling things that look even vaguely like their own products. And when you look at their cornering of the market, when you look at how iconic their characters are, I honestly think they stand a decent chance of winning a few of these court battles. I really do. But on the flip side of that, one thing I can see is a drop in prices or a freezing of prices. I can honestly see that. If we get to a stage where the 3D printing is at a level where they're producing Games Workshop standard models for like 50p a pop, or a sprue, then I think at that stage you will start to see Games Workshop start to react to the 3D printing. Now, I only have two contacts still working in the studio at Games Workshop, making decisions, things like that. So I'm not going to sit here and give you things that I'm going to espouse as fact. But opinions that I have been gauging have been noting that 3D printing is about 20 years behind Games Workshop. In terms of... now, what I mean is, the 3D printers that are out there, they may be good, they may be really, really good at making models, they may be really good at making Games Workshop style models, but very, very, very few people have access to those 3D printers because they're extremely expensive, right? So, what I would say is, in terms of, I look at it as the Example I was given was back in the day when home computing was first starting to come around. Eventually, every single home has a home computer, right? Everybody has one. If it's a laptop or whatever, everybody seems to have one. Back in the early 90s, though, that wasn't the case, right? One in 7 to 10 homes had a home computer, right? And I think that's the same with. In fact, I think that if you really look into it, I don't know whether we'll be able to get any of these stats, and if anyone can, then put them in the description below, in the comments below. But I think that the percentage of hobbyists who own a 3D printer is far below the amount of people who owned a PC back in the day, right, when they first started coming out. So I would say home 3D printing is about 20 years behind where Games Workshop is right now. As that gives Games Workshop 2 decades of time to adjust their business model to cope with 3D printing. Which is why I'm saying, if you think that 3D printing will have any sort of long-term effect on Games Workshop in terms of its existence, you are living in cloud cuckoo land. That will not happen, and I don't want you to get your hopes up that it will happen. No, nor should you have your hopes up that it's going to happen. A lot of cool people work for Games Workshop, and you shouldn't be hoping for people to lose their jobs. You should be hoping for change, and I think what 3D printing can do is definitely afford Games Workshop some time when they can change, or they can have an excuse to change, and to not piss off their shareholders. Because by the way, a lot of the people working at Games Workshop, even higher up, want to lower the cost of models, right? They want to do all the things that you've been saying they need to do for years, but they have shareholders and a stock market to contend with. The minute they start lowering their prices is the minute that they start losing the backing of their shareholders, and people start to sell stock, and people start to not make as much money, which is not what people want to do, right? So, moving into how I think Games Workshop can use 3D printing going forwards. I honestly think in about 20 years' time, 10, 15 years' time, we are going to see the Games Workshop retail store disappear. And we are going to see the Games Workshop retail stores closing. And each major city in the UK, will have one, right? One Games Workshop store. All of the smaller ones, you're looking at your Bradfords, your Birkenheads, your Chesters, your Milton Keynes, your places like that, they will close, right? They will be gone. And we will be left with, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Newcastle, Liverpool, Birmingham, Nottingham, obviously, London. We'll probably have two stores because of the size of the city, right? Truro, all of the big capitals of their local regions will have a Games Workshop, and that Games Workshop will be non-profit. It will be, this is a recruitment centre for new hobbyists, and we will have a little space for regulars to come in, maybe, I don't know, but I think that's what will happen. And the Games Workshop model will move to an online-only business, because it is quite simply far cheaper to maintain and put out there. And I do not think this will happen overnight. I think this will literally happen as 3D printing gears up and demand for models gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. That's when we'll start to see this shift of Games Workshop finally saying, hey, the jig is up. I liken it to, if you ever see Mad Men, when in the early seasons of Mad Men, they're frantically trying to offset the falling popularity of cigarettes, right? Because they're now a health hazard. People know they're a health hazard. Well, that's exactly what Games Workshop are doing right now. They will be looking at contingency plans for when 3D printing takes off. Games Workshop are not blind to 3D printing. They know it's out there, they know it's coming, and they know eventually D-Day will arrive, where we are now at a terminal velocity. We're now at a terminal velocity where if Games Workshop carries on with the same business model, it's not going to fail, but it will start losing money. And no one wants to lose money, right? They will arrest the slide eventually, but no one wants to lose money. So I think with Kevin Roundtree at the helm, he will be there until this starts to rear its head. He's going to be there for another 10 years, I reckon, at the helm of Games Workshop. He's done a splendid job so far, aside from the copyright stuff. And I honestly think that when we looked at the accounts the other week, you could see that drift of them already setting the building blocks in place. They're laying the foundations for their online only business. The fact that a lot of their money in terms of wages is being spent in the back room, it's being spent in the studio, it's being spent in the infrastructural environment of Games Workshop rather than the retail. Should retail people get paid more for what they do? Of course they should. But there is a reason why they're not being paid as much as everybody else in the company, and that's because Games Workshop is shifting its weight, it's shifting its influence behind online retailing, behind not selling things in stores anymore. Because, let's be honest, most of the stuff you buy that isn't food is on Amazon and other online retailers, so why should Games Workshop be any different? So, what I would say is, what 3D printing will push them into going to that business model a lot sooner than perhaps anybody is keen to admit. I honestly think that the most likely world-busting thing that Games Workshop might have to do in terms of 3D printing is to, number one, go after 3D printers, which I think they will do. They will go after the people who are making and designing these things. They won't go after 3D printing companies, but they will go after individuals. They'll say, no, I can see that your model is based on Games Workshop products, and therefore I do not want you to sell it. They will say, hey, Disney wouldn't want you selling a knockoff Mickey Mouse, even if it looked a little bit different. So we don't want you selling a knockoff Space Marine, even if it looks a little bit different, right? We just had one from Dave from Mini Wargaming bringing out Chaos models that look superb. But I can tell you now I honestly, now is the time to get into 3D printing if you're going to be selling it as a business. But be aware that in 10 to 15 years, that business may be dead. Because if all Games Workshop have to do is change the algorithm and it's gone. That's all they need to do. All they need to do, the Games Workshop dropped their prices by 20% because of 3D printing. Game over, right? Because people want the game. There is a thing out there of wanting the real thing, wanting the authentic real thing. It is a thing, you know. It's something that consumers and advertisers have known for decades, right? It's like the Wish thing, right? You know, we have Space Marines at home, and then you see the Space Marines like this. It's like a 3D printed model, right? I firmly believe certain really high-end 3D printers are at Games Workshop level in terms of 3D printing. But then, about 90% of that market isn't. Right? I've seen 3D printed models that I look at them and go, yes, that's nowhere near Games Workshop standard. Right? I have a friend who does D&D miniatures and he sells them. But he freely admits, look, this isn't even Lord of the Rings Games Workshop standard. Never mind 40k or Age of Sigmar. It's nowhere near, right? It's just everyone's saying it is. I'm sorry, unless you spent thousands of pounds on your 3D printer, you are not 3D printing at the level of Games Workshop. It just isn't happening right now. The technology isn't there unless you're spending a obscene amount of money to make it happen. And if you are, then my hat's off to you. You know, you're going to save a lot of money on models in the long run. But I honestly do not believe that they're at that level, and I don't think they will be for about 10, 20 years. You know, at least not at the point where everybody has access to these things for a few £100s. Now, that's what I'm saying. A few £100 and you can buy yourself a top-of-the-line 3D printer. That's the level we need to be at for Games Workshop to take notice and go, oh, hang on. We're now actively about to lose money. We need to paradigm shift our business into being something else. It will happen. I'm not saying it won't. It will happen. But what I am saying is that I can't see it happening really anytime that soon. And I honestly think Games Workshop will be ahead of the game when it comes to the point. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I don't think it'll even affect them that much. I think we'll start to see a gradual change in the business, and I think we already are seeing them laying the foundation for that change. And so anyone saying a Games Workshop's going to go away or 3D printing is going to kill Games Workshop, you're absolutely wrong. I'm afraid they're not going anywhere, and the quicker you get used to that fact, the less heartbroken you will be when they're still here, right? So, that is my opinion on 3D printing. I think it is a great thing. I think competition is great. I think anything that forces a company to make different decisions and go in a different direction is great. I think if Games Workshop use this as an opportunity, then they could seal off the market of tabletop gaming for decades to come. And I think if they don't, then yes, we may be seeing them not in trouble, but losing money for a while. And the company going back to what it was in the mid noughties, and well, not the mid noughties, but the early tens, where stock prices were falling, and Games Workshop still, even then, they were like that for about 5-10 years, and they still didn't go anywhere. So I think we may even see another slide where they don't react quick enough, but they will arrest that and come back stronger than ever, because at the end of the day, they're right in one thing: they make the best models in the world, and they intend to do so forever. And as long as they are willing to shift and adopt to the changing paradigm of what 3D printing is bringing to the table, because it is a game changer, as long as they can adapt to that, they're going to be just fine. Alright, thank you very much for watching, guys. What do you think about 3D printing? Do you think it's going to change Games Workshop, or do you think Games Workshop's going to go under? Or do you think Games Workshop's just going to kill the entire thing in the courtroom? Let me know in the comments below. Happy Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow with our showcase video. And then we'll be doing some more hobby store stories towards the midweek. So, see you then. Have a good one.